Yes, so.
Yes, so.
Welcome to week 144 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara. During this week's episodes, Vancouver will be hosting the World Cup, and we are actually going to go out of the country, but we're not going to tell you where we're going. But we have a little clue. They once hosted the Olympics, so you'll be surprised where we end up. Yes, so.
Yes, so.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We have finished episode 699 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Monday, April 27th, 1987. Welcome to week 144. James Hong was on the Hardy Boys this week, towards the end of season 2 of the Hardy Boys Nancy Drew Mysteries. And he had a really good role. He had a major role throughout the entire episode, so that was nice. Of course, we've seen him once before on the show, and I believe in the future we'll see him in one other appearance.
You know, we've done very well with the Nancy Drew Hardy Boys series in terms of seeing Santa Barbara. Of course, we saw a very young Gina. We have seen Lloyd Bachner playing someone who's not a villain for once. And, of course, we saw A. Martinez.
1977, I guess, was the sweet spot for some of these stars from Santa Barbara. What's going on in Santa Barbara? Well, Mason opens up the morning paper and sees the announcement about the memorial service, and he tells Victoria he feels sorry for Cruz, and also hates that they didn't have a proper funeral for Eden. This kind of makes me think of the old soap opera trope of a wedding. When they know the wedding's not going to happen, they generally don't have the entire cast on the show for a big wedding. They'll have people will call and say, "Oh, can't make it," blah blah blah. It's only when everyone shows up and is dressed up that you know this wedding is actually going to go through.
That's a good tip.
They're not going to spend all that money on a fake wedding on a soap. He and Victoria decide that if they have a girl, they will name her Eden. I wonder if that will still be the case if Eden is found before the baby's born. I've kind of lost track on when Victoria's due. Brick arrives at Johnny's to tell Jane and Pearl the good news that as of today he's a new man. And then he proudly shows them his brand new motorcycle. He's wearing a leather jacket, but he says, "Don't worry, I won't get a tattoo or start carrying a switchblade." Tattoos were still not a thing in 1987.
Yes, they were.
They weren't that common at the time, I would say. At first, Jane is not too pleased. She does not like motorcycles. But somehow, by the end of the episode, she's putting on a helmet on little Johnny as they go to the beach together for a picnic. They have a great time. I'm really liking this Brick and Jane coupling. But maybe they're having too good of a time because a photographer comes along and says he wants to get a photo of the family. And Brick says, "We're not a family!" And then Jane mutters something else like, "Go away, leave us alone," and runs off. And later back at Johnny's, they both realize they're on the same page, that they're just... Jane never really associated the word family with, anything positive growing up, and he's just not ready, to call anything a family at this point, since his real family has collapsed. But, I think this is just a little bump in their relationship. Maybe a way for the writers to slow things down for a few days.
Yeah, I mean, it would be too easy to have it all happen this quickly and this easily.
And in theory, Santana should be showing up and saying, "How come you're spending all this time with Jane?"
Yeah.
But we don't know where she is. Eden tells Kane that she wants him to call her family because they are listening to the radio, and the report of the downed plane is once again mentioned. and that the case has been closed. He says, I can't leave you alone that long. The nearest phone is 20 miles away, and I've got to walk there. Don't know if that's true or not, because we're still not too sure about Kane. And to prove that he can't leave her alone, he installs a grab bar above her bed and says, go ahead, try to lift yourself up. And she has no power in her arms. And she resigns herself that she's kind of reliant on him. Eden also says she doesn't remember where she's from, which is interesting, because she does remember Cruz. When she says she doesn't know, Kane says, sometimes it's better to just start over. Like being born again. How many of us ever get that chance? So I really feel like this is him talking about whatever backstory he has that we're going to find out. I'm sure Nam will be involved in some way.
Yeah, I was thinking about your comments about this earlier, and I feel like this would have been the time that Rambo would have maybe been a big movie. So maybe that kind of storyline is kind of coming out of that.
Maybe he's AWOL from whatever he was doing there. She says the name Cruz, and he asks who is that, and she says Cruz is someone that I love, and I have to get back to him. So later on when he's gone, she looks at that bar and is very disappointed. Cruz freaks out over encountering some of Eden's clothes and pulls them all out of every closet and piles them into boxes. When Julia arrives, he's about to have them all taken away, but she says maybe Sophia and Kelly would like to go through them first. He agrees and takes them over to the Capwell house, where he encounters Victoria, who says something like time heals all wounds, which gets him extremely angry, and later he tells Julia that because of Victoria, he and Eden have lost so much time together. Julia goes to visit Haley and runs into Victoria instead and asks what she said that made Cruz so angry. This gets Victoria very upset with Julia, and she asks exactly what is your relationship with Mason before I married him. And she tells Julia to stay away from Mason. He's taken. I feel like she has correctly judged Julia's interest in Mason. Mason and Victoria argue about Julia. Victoria says that jealousy of hers makes it impossible to be her friend, but you can go ahead and be her friend if you like. So that's interesting. She's leaving it up to Mason's good judgment.
Now, I'm almost wondering if this is a little bit of a test.
Oh, that could be. I don't know. It seemed so straightforward that I didn't even think of that. But, yeah, I think Mason's probably... I think Mason probably thinks it might be better to put some distance between Julia for its own sake, I think. Mason finds Julia at Johnny's and accuses her of attacking Victoria. Julia says that Victoria misinterpreted. Mason tells her to leave them alone, stay away from my wife. Then Julia tells him not to meddle in her relationship with Cruz. Stay out of my life. So, that's it for Cruz and for Mason and Julia, I guess. So, we'll see how long they can stay away from each other, although they do work together. So maybe we'll see some surly conversations at work.
Well, they do have a baby coming up together, too. So.
That's true. Plus, they see each other every Friday at the Lamaze classes, and of course at work every day. So yeah, we'll just see if Victoria is satisfied with how their relationship shakes out. Also, just thinking about her relationship with Cruz, I am wondering if maybe Cruz will move on with Julia at some point, depending how long Eden is trapped in a cabin.
Yeah, well, we still don't know quite what role that mystery woman is going to play in the lives of our people in Santa Barbara as well.
Mm-hmm. The mystery woman checks into a hotel. Wonder where she is. Welcome to Santa Barbara, Miss Norris, says the bellboy. So she is going by the name Miss Norris. Whether that is her real name, we may or may not find out. According to IMDb, the credits still show her as Mystery Woman, even though, fortunately, we have no access to the credits at this point. So we're just going to have to rely on that. She pulls the blonde wig that she wore in Utah out of her bag and cuts it into pieces into the garbage can. Don't know if, when you dispose of evidence, normally you shouldn't keep it with you the whole time from the crime scene to where you're going next. You should probably get rid of it sooner than later, but maybe she just didn't want it anywhere near the crime scene to avoid clues that it wasn't Eden flying the plane.
I kept thinking, watching that, of how we travel by air now, where you try and stuff everything you can into a tiny carry-on bag, and you certainly wouldn't be using up precious space on a wig.
Mm-hmm. And they probably wouldn't have let her take those scissors, unless maybe those are hotel scissors she's using.
Yeah.
Is she in the Capwell Hotel? It didn't really look like it to me, but, we only ever see the presidential suite. Maybe that's one of the normal rooms. She does have a little bit of a view, so maybe we'll find out. Maybe the red bellboy outfits are the same as the ones they wear at the Capitol Hotel, and that was a clue, but I don't really pay attention that much to that sort of thing, so it might be an interesting twist if she's purposely checked into the Capitol Hotel. She calls the concierge and orders 24 roses to be delivered to Inspector Cruz Castillo at 105 White Sands Lane. I don't know if we knew that was their address before. Send a card. With heartfelt sympathy, a friend of Eden's. So I think she's planning to infiltrate herself into Mr. Castillo's life in some way. It'll be interesting to see what her thoughts are on that, and whether she can hide her crazy a little bit. She seems to be hiding it from her family because she telephones her father and pretends to be in the Canary Islands and having a wonderful time. And she says, "Oh, tell me how work is going. Don't overdo it. Are you getting enough rest? I worry. Of course I miss you too. We'll be together again soon. I have got the most wonderful plans. I can't wait to share them with you." Maybe the next time she calls her dad, she'll say, "Good news, I'm engaged to a lovely inspector." She may be crazy, so who knows if she'll think Cruz is in love with her instead of Eden. Maybe she should have kept that wig. Mason visits Cruz, bringing in the flowers and card that have arrived from Miss Norris, and reads the card. I think he brings in a few other things, too, that had been left there that Cruz hadn't answered the door for. He invites Cruz to lunch with Victoria and him. Mason, I guess, is not too aware that Cruz is very upset with Victoria. He says, "I don't want to be comforted. Have lunch. Live happily ever after. Just don't rub my face in it." Later, Pearl does manage to get Cruz to laugh. I don't know if on purpose or just at the absurdity of it all, as he tries to make him dinner or offer him some drinks or something. Unfortunately, the cleaner arrives with some more of Eden's clothes, and Cruz freaks out again. Mm-hmm. So nice to see Cruz and Pearl together in a non-case related scene. So that is nice. I mean, he's got Pearl visiting, he's got Julia visiting. He's not at work, so be interesting to see some more interactions. There's some people we don't see at all interact. It's very rare. I mean, just like even the siblings, the Capwell siblings. When we finally see, Mason hugging Eden last week, I think it was, or I think Mason hugging Sophia recently, which was nice. They have to make the most of those because months can go by without the two of them in a scene together. Oh, that's it for our episode 699. So we got to see Miss Norris again this week and got her name. I don't think we'll be seeing her again till Friday, though. So hopefully some other exciting stuff will happen. Hopefully, next time we see the chemical company, it'll move forward a little more with the miracle drug and not so much Kelly and Jeffrey stuff.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were saying that we will not be seeing Mystery Woman till Friday. I thought, then it'll be Kelly and Jeffrey.
Hope we see a lot of Brick and Jane. I'd rather see Brick and Jane than Kelly and Jeffrey, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think I've said it before. I quite enjoyed Kelly and Jeffrey's dynamic when they were on the run and trying to get home from Europe, but they've just been a big drag ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately.
Lionel and Carolyn are back together, so that could be dull, but maybe they'll go on an adventure or something. That's it for our Monday episode of week 144, and next episode is number 700. Back watching the show originally, you never would have realized it was a 700th episode. They didn't really tout those things back then for soap operas. I mean, even then, it's the thousands that normally count, although Beyond the Gates, I think, celebrated 200 or something. So, but yeah, we will try and get ourselves out to Science World maybe tomorrow for an episode 700 podcast. I'm not allowed to go out in the sun, so we'll figure out how we're going to do that. All right, we'll see you after we watch episode 700 of NBC's Santa Barbara. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, it's recording. I'm going to need you to hold up the phone. Damn, I don't know why I can't make it bigger, because it's getting to be to the point where I almost can't read it. I'm just like, shit, stupid thing.
I'm in the wrong side.
And I'm covering the camera. It doesn't matter what side you're on. Welcome to episode 700 of Misha Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
We have found a not lit up, but in the presence of some lights, soccer ball in Vancouver. And episode 700 of Santa Barbara originally aired Tuesday, April 28th, 1987. And we had a couple of sightings of actors of Santa Barbara. We saw Martine Beswick on It Takes a Thief, our assassin from a couple of years ago. We saw pianist Michael Feinstein on Melrose Place, who will be showing up in a few years to sing the song of one of our couples. Just let me know if you need a break and we'll take a break. We saw Lenore Kasdorf, Carolyn, on the streets of San Francisco.
Looking very young, but still very recognizable.
Yeah, I didn't recognize her for the first few seconds of her scene. Or actually the first scene she was in when she didn't speak. And sadly, we've had the deaths of Peebo Bryson, who wrote Kelly and Joe's theme, or performed Kelly and Joe's theme, If Ever You're in My Arms Again. Passed away a few days ago, and Ronnie Shell died yesterday. Frank Armstead, the astronaut, who was also a milkman. And do you need a break?
No, but I'm going to let you do the scrolling because...
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. All right, in 1987, Lionel comes over to comfort Sophia and to talk about Brick. And Lionel then goes to offer his condolences to Cece, but he tells him to get lost. Cece then is upset with Sophia for moving Eden's things out of her room. Jeffrey tells Alex that the family is grieving and wants him to drop his vendetta. Alex says, sure, as long as you drop your hatred for Mason too. I feel like Alex cannot be trusted in anything he says.
No, definitely not.
I feel like now Jeffrey may hit his enemy too.
Yeah.
Because I think he wants revenge on Cece about that money. Kelly and Jeffrey have a picnic on the beach, and Jeffrey tells Kelly that the reason he hates Mason is because Pamela was dying and needed an operation, and she wrote Mason 4 times for the money, and he never responded.
Now, we know that Mason was actually looking for his mom not that long ago, and so we know there's something a little bit fishy going on.
Yeah, we know Mason and Pamela were talking in the first season when they had some scheme, and then they lost contact. I'm wondering if either Cece hid the letters from Pamela or Alex hid the responses from Mason. But I don't think Mason got those letters. So, and that's what I'm thinking, that if Mason finds out that Cece hid those letters, that is going to be, it for Mason and Cece making up. Kelly asks, sorry, did we already talk about that? Sorry, I can't remember what we said. Alex says, sure, as long as you drop your hatred for Mason too. We said that, right? Kelly and Jeffrey have a picnic on the beach. Okay, no, that's what we just talked about. So Kelly says it's impossible that Mason did this, but in any event, it doesn't sound like I can convince you, so why don't you drop it for my sake, if you don't believe that Mason, didn't hurt Pamela. So we'll see if Jeffrey does that. Now, Kelly makes some comment to Cece about, him asking, it's the same convoluted episode. I'm sure I can make this fucking thing bigger. Kelly makes some comment to Cece about asking Eden to join the company. Kelly makes some comment to Cece about how he had asked Eden to join the company, and the next thing you know, Cece is offering Kelly a spot in the company because I think he's just floundering, trying to replace Eden in some way, and Kelly doesn't think, I don't think I can do it. But Sophia says, oh, you can do anything you want. You'll be running that company in a month. So before you know it, somehow Kelly's agreed to take a spot in the company.
Which is so ironic because if you remember back to the first season, Eden practically had to do handstands just to get Cece to consider her, as executive material at all.
Yeah, he was like, oh, I'll get you a dress shop and you can run that, you know? She really had to push to get the Orient Express built. So, guess what? Mason finds out about this and goes, oh, you just hand anything to your daughters, but your sons, have to jump through hoops to get anything from you. He goes, oh, you're a lawyer. You don't want to run a multi-billion-dollar company. So, I think Cece doesn't know it yet, but I think his good times with Mason are doomed, at least for the next little while, especially if the other thing is true. All right, I'm having trouble reading these, so I'm going to Kelly, Cece. Mason says that the only reason Cece hates him, and probably Jeffrey too, is because they're Pamela's children, which is an interesting thing, and that's what got me thinking about that he did hide the letters, when Mason said that. Mason goes to Alex, and we don't realize exactly what's happening yet when we see the scenes, but he says, has my father made a bid yet for your company? And he says, no, but we're expecting him to make an offer of around $2 million any second now. And so, it makes it sound like Mason's going to make a bid, and I feel like, I don't know if that would mess things up for Alex's revenge, because I think Alex's revenge basically counts on CC being the investor, so he can screw him over the way, he got screwed over. But
it's actually, Mason's intent to screw his dad over. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the whole thing with the diamond years ago now, where Mason schemed to get the diamond and then it shattered. And I feel like this is going to happen to him similarly if he wins, scare quotes, against CC in this.
Mason goes to Cece and says, Dad, I've got an opportunity to buy into the partnership of the law firm. One of the partners is stepping down, but I need $2 million. Can I borrow it from you? And Cece happily gives Mason the money after their, conversation earlier. Maybe he's feeling a bit guilty. So Mason is going to use Cece's own money to screw him out of the Alex Nicholas deal, which is kind of hilarious. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Cece says, oh, if Victoria has a boy, you can pay me back from the money that you're going to inherit from my dad's estate. Mason says, well, Victoria's, pretty clever, but I don't think she can even, give birth to a boy on command. And so Cece says, well, if it's a girl, you can have a year to pay me back at market interest rates.
Yeah, that's Cece.
Yeah. My phone seems to know that that's the back of my finger and refuses to scroll. All right. Pearl buys a toy motorcycle for Johnny. So now Pearl's all in on motorcycles. I'm worried that there'll be a motorcycle accident in the future because, soap operas don't really introduce stuff unless they're going to pan out in some way. And maybe it's just a harmless motorcycle thing. Maybe it's all just to get Jane and Brick together, this motorcycle bit. But, I'm a bit concerned that Johnny, Jane, or Brick could end up in an accident. Pearl says, I think you and Jane will make a great couple. And Brick is like, I'm really not comfortable with that. I'm still grieving Amy, so I don't think so. Well, then you could just ask her to dinner as a friend, So he seems amenable to that. Pearl promptly heads over to Jane and goes, hey, Jane, you should cook dinner for Brick. And she says, no, that sounds a bit too much like it would be a date. So Pearl cooks up a scheme, and I like it when Pearl cooks up schemes, so hoping we see more of this stuff. Brick wanders in to find Pearl tasting wine. He's got wine bottles lined up because, a friend of mine is making wine up north, and I think we should have it for the bar, but I can't taste all these wines myself, Brick. So he talks Brick into tasting all these wines for him. But Jane also gets roped into it, and before you know it, Brick and Jane are drunk and joking with each other and having a really good time. And then later in the episode, they're sitting at a table just chatting about their childhoods and their pasts. So Brick has Pearl has tricked them into going on a date. And at the end of the night, kind of sloshed, as Jane's about to leave, Brick says, oh, hang on, you forgot something, and he gives her a kiss. So I actually thought, this was going to be a multi-episode thing of Pearl trying to get them together, and once again, Santa Barbara surprised me by introducing something at the beginning of an episode that completely pans out by the end of the episode. So I like this Jane and Brick thing. My trepidation is, can we at least wrap things up with Santana?
Yeah.
So, I'm going to see if it can focus on us for a few seconds as we say goodbye, because it's focused on the ball for most of the episode. Oh, yeah, that's not too bad. So that is it for our big 700th episode. Yay! It's what you've all been waiting for all these years. And so excited to what happens in the summer. Are we going to have a summertime teen scene this year? There's no teens left on the show. Rubens, what's his name? Rupert Ravens. Danny. I don't know where he is, but he's never coming back, but he's not in a good place. And I think Haley and Ted are kind of aged out of being teens, and they've still got kind of grisly storyline that they're working through. So I think we're going to have a summertime, fun time teen scene in Santa Barbara this year. But we'll see if they do something fun for the summer. And that's it for episode 700. We'll be back after we watched episode 701 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Recording. We booked a trip to Greece so we can do episode 701 of Misha Dianne Watch Santa Barbara. And thanks to Air Canada, we are in Montreal. So, bonjour. Welcome to the Acropolis. Welcome to this segment of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara, episode 701. We are going to talk today about Haley and Ted while we are here at the Notre Dame Basilica in Montreal, and there is a busker singing with an electric guitar, but they're on the other side of this statue over here, so I'm hoping that she's blocked out enough. So Ted and Haley, Ted discovers Haley moving into the guest house, and he's so excited that she says she wants to move into the guest house, but it turns out she doesn't want to move in with him. She wants to move in alone. She still wants to keep themselves separate for a little while. Later they run into Lucy, who now has a last name, Lucy Pickett, right? Mm-hmm. At Johnny's, and it is a new actress playing Lucy. And I don't have my list handy as to who's playing whom. So that's interesting. The other Lucy has been recast. I don't know if that's because they changed the storyline and needed an actress for longer than they had originally planned, or if changed the storyline the other actors didn't care for, which we'll find out as we talk about it. But yeah, so Lucy says that Ted wonders why she didn't come to group today. She goes, "Oh, I don't need it anymore. I'm cured. I'm so happy. I went on a date yesterday. Everything's great. Here, I want you to have my camera." And I guess that's one of the warning signs that when people start giving away their possessions, that they might be planning something that you don't want them to do. So I think the viewer catches on sooner than anyone on the show. Although Ted is concerned, Haley is concerned about the whole thing. They do kind of dance around questioning her throughout the episode. I think we get a bit of a confirmation of her intentions. So when she talks to the new bartender at Johnny's, guess who it is? It's Jake.
Yes,
he has not
Jake
left
is
the
back.
show after all, like you would think if you were just a casual viewer. He is now entrenched in the show, taking over Ken's spot as the bartender at Johnny's. And he says no one else would hire him. Brick kind of did it because Brick was in the same position as him with the suspicion so recently. But it's weird. Mr. Abernathy was the one who posted his bail originally, so I'm shocked he doesn't, want him back. But I think he wouldn't want to work for Abernathy after, that Ted promotion. So
Yeah.
anyway, I guess we'll see how he settles into being a bartender there. Lucy approaches him, and I guess she thinks he's kind of a rough customer because she asks him where she could buy a gun. So
Not a good sign.
no. So anyway, we got several people now who have some, alarm bells maybe going off in their heads about Lucy. So we'll see. Hopefully things don't progress too tragically with her. Ted and Haley end up having some champagne back at the guest house, and I think he tries to leave as things are getting hot and heavy, but I think she wants him to stay. So we'll see what happens in the next episode. All right, that is it for this segment filmed in beautiful Montreal at the Acropolis. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Where are we? We're not in Greece. Are we in Paris? Hello.
Hi.
We are where are we at?
We are down at the waterfront in Old Montreal.
Not as you might expect in Greece. And it's Canada Day. So we are doing the next segment of the podcast here. And it is regarding Mason and Jeffrey. So Jeffrey finally shows up at Victoria and Mason's apartment to have it out with Mason over Pamela. And they end up arguing, and Jeffrey ends up leaving without speaking to Mason. Now Victoria tries to get them to talk before Jeffrey storms out, but she's unsuccessful. Then Jeffrey tells Kelly, "Oh yeah, I never even got to tell him." So Kelly storms over to Mason and says, "Mason, Jeffrey has a very important reason for hating you. But I'm not going to tell you what it is. It's up to Jeffrey to tell you." So Kelly has known all these things over time for months and is the one who could really short-circuit this whole storyline by just telling Mason.
That's not how it works in soap operas.
No. So then eventually Jeffrey and Mason finally get together, and Mason says, "I never got any of those letters that you say Pamela sent." And Jeffrey says, "Oh, I suppose she lied to me on her deathbed," and doesn't believe Mason, thinks Mason is lying about that. So he storms out. And then Victoria, and they nearly come to blows, and Victoria is angry because she's seen Dr. Ballard today and she's got something to tell Mason. And she blurts out, I don't want our son learning violence from the way your family is. And Mason says, "Our son?" And that's when she reveals that Dr. Ballard gave her a sonogram and that they are having a boy. She says, though he did say something a little bit confusing, he said that Cece's firstborn grandson is going to inherit the lion's share of his father's fortune. So that's where we left them. I think Mason now has to explain to Victoria why he never once mentioned that if they have a boy, they would be super wealthy. And I guess Kelly and Mason, Jeffrey and Mason have had it out, but someone's probably going to storm out again, and they won't have the second half of that conversation for a while. But at least now that it's out, maybe Kelly can form. Maybe Kelly and Victoria should talk.
Well, at least move things forward a bit now.
Yeah. That's it for them. So we'll find another place to do the next segment, which is about Carolyn. All right. Happy Canada Day.
Bye-bye.
Did we make it to Greece after all? No, it's just an exhibition here in Montreal. From the Temple of Athena, Misha Dianne are watching Santa Barbara. Nope, we're still in Montreal. And let's talk about the last segment of episode 701 of Santa Barbara, which is related to Carolyn's attempts to finish her interview with Dr. Nicholas. She shows up at his lab, and he's not there, but Lionel is, or he's followed her there somehow. Anyway, Dr. Nicholas finds them both in his lab and is very annoyed. I think he's always annoyed at people snooping around, because I feel he's got something to hide.
Oh, I think so. He's starting to feel more and more like a mad scientist.
And in fact, Lionel gives him nicknames like Dr. Jekyll and Dr. Strangelove, and taunts Carolyn about him the whole time, and is somewhat annoyed by the fact that when Carolyn is trying to push Dr. Nicholas to finish his interview for the alumni magazine, which, as she pointed out, is where all his funding is coming from, he says, okay, well, if you have dinner with me, I'll finish the interview there. So Lionel is annoyed to find out she's once again having dinner with Dr. Nicholas.
Now, he really is getting around, right? Between Carolyn and Gina.
And he's working for the university, but also at the Acme or Apex or whatever it is, pharmaceuticals. So, he's always walking into Jeffrey's office at Apex, so I assume he has an office there too, right? Even though CC hasn't made a bid yet. So I don't know if he's always just there in meetings with the board every time we see him at Jeffrey's office. I don't know. But yeah, he's still definitely working at the lab in the university. So they end up at the Orient Express, I believe. I think that was it. It didn't look like Johnny's. And she interviews him for quite some time, and he says, wow, you've been talking about my vaccine for 25 minutes. And she says, oh, it sounds like you're obsessed. He says, well, I just think of all the people I could have saved if I'd invented it sooner. So I feel like he's talking about Pamela.
Yeah.
So, the fact that we think Pamela is actually still alive is very confusing at this point.
And we know this isn't Days of Our Lives, because people aren't rising up from the dead after being dead for many years. So.
I mean, maybe he found her after she died, injected her with the serum, and shoved her in a cryo chamber, but hasn't told Jeffrey. That's one thing that's coming to mind. But Lionel barges in to the Orient Express and pulls Carolyn out of there, and she's very upset to have been dragged out. And he says, damn it, I love you, and I have for some time. So, hey, I guess maybe that storyline will progress, Lionel and Caroline. Maybe the romantic storyline will advance. Well, I don't know, she wasn't ready to move into the mansion or anything a couple days ago, so... well, we'll see where that goes. So Carolyn's got, her finger in a lot of little storylines here and there.
She does.
Even though no one else is going to the university anymore. She's like the only one based there, I guess. And, Dr. Nicholas. So none of the kids are going to the university anymore. Alice has left town. Jake and Haley have their own things going on right now. So, interesting how long the University of Santa Barbara stays in the picture and how, if it wraps up. That storyline. So, all right, those are the main three segments. I think we pretty much covered everything. Dr. Nicholas had, in this episode, been pushing Jeffrey, talk to Mason, and he actually said to Kelly, "Oh, I've been trying to get him to talk to Mason for quite some time." So I don't know if that's
something Kelly will put together. Wait a minute, you've been talking about Mason with Jeffrey for a long time. I don't know if that's something he let slip or if that just makes sense with the relationship. I mean, Kelly knows that he knew Pamela, so I guess maybe there's nothing new there for her to figure out for their relationship. But anyway, let's see if Mason and Jeffrey's relationship finally gets stable, since he is dating her sister. So he is dating his sister. So, oh, that was the other thing that I didn't mention the last time when Victoria, I guess it was Victoria, no, it was Victoria or Kelly was saying to Mason, you know, a year ago you weren't getting along with Eden, right? And now she's dead. So imagine, you know, what if the same thing happens with Jeffrey? You should make up with your brother. So, all right, that's it for episode 701 of Santa Barbara. Next time we see you, we will be back in Vancouver for episode 702 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
The secret of the century, and Dr. Jekyll goes out and doesn't even lock his door, huh?
Dr. Nicholas, his lab assistant, just stepped out for a moment.
Oh, really? Oh, well, where is the good Count himself?
I don't find your little put-down to the men all that amusing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tell you what, if you agree to have dinner with me, I'll leave you alone with Dr. Strangelove. When you finished your business with Dr. Caligari, you and I can go and have dinner and discuss our mutual business.
Sur la tour de Lévis, au Boréal, Misha Dianne, regardons Santa Barbara. 145 steps and another 10 to get up here. Welcome to episode 702 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
We have left the land of Athena and Expo 67 and the 1976 Olympics and $6 coffees to
And
return.
poutine.
Which we didn't have, to return to Vancouver. I did not expect this week that I would be eating crepes 4 times, but that happened. We're back in Vancouver, and the World Cup is still ongoing. We watched episode 702 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired, I don't know, April 30th or something, 1987? Is that what we're in? I'll check all that when we get back. But let's just see what we can remember from the episode. Well, Mason does the obvious. He goes to CC, who is once again watching old videos of Eden. 16 millimeter film, I think we had decided it was. And Mason says, say, you don't know anything about some letters that Pamela sent me, maybe 4 of them over the last, year or two. And CC is surprised that Mason would even think that he would know anything about some letters that Pamela might have sent him. And Cece says, "Oh, and while you're here, I just want you to know that I don't ever, I don't ever want you to feel like, I don't support you, and want to apologize for any time where you may have felt that you didn't get, what you wanted from me." And Mason says, "Well, that's a pretty blanket apology. It's going to have to cover a lot of things." So Mason leaves and goes to visit Sophia and says, "Say, Sophia, you don't know anything about some letters Pamela sent?" And she says, "No, I don't know anything about it." And he says, "I guess all the people that should know don't seem to know." Now, at this point, I thought, oh, why hasn't he got a Rosa? Because she would presumably bring in the mail. Cece then takes Pamela's letters out of the secret hiding place in the study and burns them. So that was a bit of a shocker. He was such a good actor that I kind of believed him when he said he didn't know anything about it, and I was starting to think Gina had them. Because she, of course, as Mason is discussing this with Kelly, I guess, about the timing of things, Kelly realizes, this is the time when, right after Mary died, when you weren't even in town, right? So, you couldn't possibly have gotten those letters. It's interesting. Kelly actually comes back to Mason and says, "Oh, hey, yeah, you know what? You should ask Dad because I realized you weren't even in town." He goes, "Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds like a good idea." So he doesn't let on that he's actually already seen Cece and Sophia about this.
Yeah, we very much see Kelly in detective mode almost in this episode. also trying to run a little bit of interference, be a little bit of a peacemaker, if you will, between Jeffrey and Mason.
Mm-hmm. And then Jeffrey's like, "Oh, just let it go," and she's like, "No, I'm not going to let this go. I'm going to see this through." So she tells Jeffrey, that Mason wasn't even there, and he said, "Oh yeah, but people will, when they return home, they get all their mail. So he obviously got them all. He's just not willing to believe Mason didn't get them." Oh, by the way, the first letter that we see Cece burn, it's clear that it's been opened. So Cece has read these letters. In fact, the way he said to Mason, "Oh, if I had thought that Pamela really needed money, I never would have kept something like that from you." Which at that time I thought, oh, so did he read the letter requesting money and not believe it? And when he burned them all, I guess that's what I'm thinking. He read them, but he thought it was all just a scam to get money.
Yeah, I guess so. It kind of made me wonder how much exactly Cece knows about what's been going on with Pamela. I mean, obviously, if she was appealing for funds, he would actually know a lot more about Pamela's situation last year than Mason would.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm assuming that Cece also believes she's dead, but maybe he has suspicions. We don't really know what Cece's mindset is right now.
Yeah, Kelly interestingly pointed out to Jeffrey, "Oh, by the way, Mason didn't kill your mother, nor did the disease that she had. She killed herself." So it's interesting that Kelly, she's had enough of the blaming and, wants to reframe things a little bit for Jeffrey. So now Mason finds the check, the $2 million check that he'd picked up earlier from Cece hasn't been signed and returns. And he actually returns to lend some books to Sophia, and drops the book and almost encounters a torn piece of the burnt letter that had fallen out of the ashtray off the desk in the study. But later when Cece encounters him there and Mason says, "Oh, you forgot to sign the check," Cece spots it and grabs it. Now I thought the check was going to end up with soot all over it. I guess every time I've had to try to deal with ashes with my bare hands, I've ended up covered in ashes. So Cece managed to grab the ash-covered charred end with one hand and successfully sign the check and hand it over to Mason with the other without getting ashes anywhere. But I feel like now there's a potential Sophia may be the one who realizes that Cece's burned these letters and put it together.
Yeah.
Unless Kelly shows up at the mansion again. Gina presumably is still in Sacramento or wherever. I feel like we've had no Gina for a while. Must be Robin Matson's vacation time or something. Speaking of vacation, Eden is in Utah, and she is not really able to do anything. She can't even reach for a glass of water. And Kane has a fun idea. What if I set the cabin on fire and see if Eden can put it out for herself? So he drops a lit match into a trash bucket on his way out the door. And when he comes back, Eden has managed to grab the pitcher of water and pour it on there. He goes, "Oh, well, you passed your test." And she throws the bucket at him. So, it's a big glass jar. So she's not too happy with this little test. He does tell a tale about, "Oh, I knew a whole bunch of people who lost the ability to walk. And the doctor said they'd never walk again. And, they just had to, put in the work." She said, "Did all of them learn to walk?" Most of them can walk again.
He's clearly a bit of a weirdo. Very least.
I think we're going to get some tales of Vietnam at some point from him. Speaking of that, you recall that originally he had passed Eden by when he found her lying in the snow and went back for her. Well, he actually says, "I didn't choose to bring you in just so that you wouldn't walk again. I chose to bring you here so that you would." So she says, "Oh, it sounds like you were going to leave me," and he kind of changes. He says, "Oh, you're always changing the subject," or something. So there's a tale there too, I think. I think it's the obvious. He's decided he's no longer a member of society. Probably society abandoned him after Vietnam, and he wasn't going to ever deal with any other human ever again. And then he spotted Eden, and he was originally resolute in being a lone man, but now I guess he's, he did decide to save her. That's what I'm thinking is going to be the story of that.
Victoria also is doing some digging this episode. She visits Cece to say, "Hey, hi, from Dr. Ballard, your golfing buddy. He mentioned the money that the baby's going to inherit." And he goes, "Well, yeah, only if it's a boy, but he'll inherit the bulk of my father's estate." So Cece lets it slip, assuming, presumably at some point Mason would have to tell Victoria, and that he has. So Victoria is a good actress, I guess. So Cece doesn't realize he's revealed anything to her, and Victoria confronts Mason with that money and says, "Oh, Cece also mentioned you're going to be 100% in control of the money." And Mason doesn't really give her, that good of an answer. But I think it's interesting because really the last time Mason and Cece talked about the money, way back when Cece was trying to convince Mason to marry Victoria, Mason said, "I don't want the money."
Yeah.
So now, probably given some months to think about it, maybe he doesn't want all that money. I mean, he probably wanted it for a long time, so.
I think if he finds out that Cece burned all those letters, he might want the money just to get something out of his relationship with Cece at this point.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's always the chance that Cece will decide to reveal that Cruz is the baby's father so that he doesn't have to give the money to Mason.
Yeah.
So I feel like my thought that this letter stuff is going to ramp up to be a big battle between Mason and Cece again. I think that's what the writers have planned for us. I think he'll either find the piece of the burned thing, or Sophia will find it, or something. So.
Speaking of Cruz is not having a good episode.
He's been drunk for a while, as we all know. He's always waking up. He doesn't sleep in the bedroom. He always sleeps on the couch. There's always some alcohol balls next to him, and he finds that he's out of beer, and ransacks the cupboards and finds a bottle of champagne with a note from Eden that says, "Hey Cruz, if you find this before our honeymoon, please don't drink it." So anyway, he kind of laughs, but then ends up throwing the bottle at the camera directly, and they'd set up, a glass plate to smash the bottle against, so it would look like he was smashing it directly at the camera. So that was a good little special effect. He's also got a little visitor from a Girl Guide selling cookies who he realizes is blonde and kind of, could be. He goes, "Oh, you could be Eden's daughter." He's drunk, you might remember. And he starts fondling her face, which she's not too happy with. And when she tells her dad in the car that the man didn't buy the cookies, "I dropped them when I ran away because he was touching me," the dad is not too happy with that. Cruz also ends up going to Keith about something. I think he's unhappy with something in the newspaper. I think Keith may have blamed something on him. Whatever recent failure Keith has had, I think he blamed on. It sounded like someone got free. It wasn't Ken, I hope. It sounded like, I don't remember what the newspaper said. It went by too quickly, but it sounds like someone that was arrested got set free. So hopefully it wasn't Ken. And then, but Keith's, he's got to make up for that, faux pas he had a couple weeks ago with Cruz. So he's actually, Keith's being pretty laid back in his dealings with Cruz, But Keith gets a phone call later in the day about a child molester, and he goes, "Oh, normally I don't get calls like this directly. Cruz Castillo." So I think Cruz will be seeing Keith either in his office or in his living room again over this weird incident that the writers have thrown in. So, but Cruz does mention to Cruz in their earlier visit that you've been drunk for days and everyone knows it. So that made me think that Cruz, maybe the reason he threw that bottle across the room is because he was thinking of what Keith said earlier and decided, okay, I'm not going to drink all the alcohol anymore. So, but he's going to need his wits about him, and Julia's help probably too with this incident. So, I think that was all the people that were in this episode.
I think we covered everything.
Yeah, we'll add a little intro with the episode number dates. The episode's 702, but the date not quite sure, but I think it's April 30th. So we're going to be coming into May soon. And hey, School was done for me in April, and I didn't go to summer school that year in '87. I hung around in Vancouver and looked for work for quite a while. I don't think I got a job till July, so I would have been watching just Santa Barbara and Another World probably all day, and looking for work.
And being in present time, this is July 6, 2026. Tomorrow is the last day of Vancouver hosting a World Cup event, so this is probably the last time you're going to see us posing in front of some sort of soccer ball.
And we missed Canada Day celebrations because we were in Montreal, and we were too tired to trek out to any of the fireworks while we were there.
Well, it was also a monsoon, so.
We did get caught in a storm, but luckily once we pulled out the map, we realized we were only literally a block from our hotel, but we thought we were actually quite far away. So unfortunately that block had minimal coverage, and we were soaked by the time we got to the safety of the Queen Elizabeth Hotel, where we were able to use the underground passages to work our way over to the Bonaventure, where we were moved after the luxury of our one night in the Queen Elizabeth, thanks to Air Canada. All right, that's it for episode 702. We will see you after we watch episode 703 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
I just want you to understand something. That I have never really wanted to cause you any unhappiness in any way.
If that's a blanket apology, it's got to cover a lot of ground.
We have found one last soccer ball in Vancouver. Welcome to episode 703 of Misha Dianne Watch Santa Barbara. We watched episode 703, which originally aired Friday, May 1st, 1987. We have found a few more soccer balls flying in the air in Vancouver before the World Cup ends. Episode 703 of Santa Barbara originally aired Friday, May 1st, 1987.
And luckily for us, this guy just started playing as we were pressing the record button.
I know, that's crazy. Why did he time his break so poorly? We just finished watching Battle of the Network Stars in 1978, the fifth Battle of the Network Stars, and guess who showed up on the NBC team? Joseph Bottoms, our beloved Kirk Cranston. So that was fun. I forget what show he was on.
Yeah, it wasn't one I really recognized, so I suspect it wasn't necessarily on very long.
He certainly dominated in all of his things, so if you want to see that. Sadly, Christy McNichol has been absent from the last couple of ones of these that we've seen.
Yeah.
She was really good. And also we saw James Hong on Thursday, which is when we watched The Rookies. I think we're on the second or third last episode of The Rookies, and James Hong showed up. All right, let's go to episode 703 of Santa Barbara. Victoria tells Mason their entire marriage is a joke because he's just after his grandfather's inheritance. And she says that she actually loves him. And he says, I care for you a great deal. I feel like this is not going to be a positive step forward in their marriage.
No. I mean, I don't see them as a lifelong couple. I actually see Mason and Julia getting closer and closer together, so we'll see.
If so, I wonder who Victoria could end up with. I mean, depends how long Eden stays dead. Could she possibly get together with Cruz again? I don't know if that's something he's interested in. I don't think he'd be interested in that at all with Eden dead.
No.
Although, remember how he married Santana just for Brandon's sake? He could end up marrying Victoria just for male baby Lane's sake. And, just as Eden comes back to life.
No, I mean, we always have Brick or Pearl kind of floating around.
Yeah, I feel like Brick and Jane is a happening thing, but yeah, Pearl's a loose cannon. I think Lionel's definitely set with Carolyn at this point. Who else did we find was free? Oh, I'll talk about that later. Eden has dreams about returning to Santa Barbara,
And she fantasizes about Cruz having to dress her and carry her everywhere. And then when they go out, such as to the Orient Express, everyone stares at her because she can't walk. And when she urges Cruz to go and dance, he ends up dancing with Victoria in her fantasy. So just as she's starting to hate the idea of everyone having to care for her and pity her, Kane shows Eden the newspaper that he, I guess, picked up at that doctor's office that says, "Heiress dead." And she says, "They already think I'm dead?" So I feel like this could be something that Eden uses to make the decision not to return until she can walk, which is probably playing right into Kane's hands.
Now, it's interesting to me that Eden doesn't have any nightmares about the strange psycho woman who actually pushed her out of a car and off a cliff. But
Yeah, I mean, the one time she told Kane she didn't know who she was, I don't know if she was lying or not. No idea how much Eden actually remembers. I mean, no way to know, because we can't rely on anything she tells Kane, because she's obviously afraid that he's a psycho, which he potentially actually is. Miss Norris returns. She watches through the beach house window as that scene is replayed of Cruz throwing the bottle at the camera and smashing it. And she continues to watch as two officers show up at his door to take him in for questioning about that little girl that he touched the other day. And he tells Julia he doesn't need her help and says that the girl's story is true. He was drunk and thought she might be a hallucination, so he touched her cheek. Keith sends Julia and the police out of the room. No, Cruz does that successfully. And then one of Keith's less than subtle comments gets Cruz to punch Keith once again. And he pulls out his gun, leans over Keith, and basically says, "Don't come after me," and gives him his gun and his badge and quits.
I think it is very fair to say that Cruz is on a bit of a self-destructive streak right now.
We'll see later in the episode he does something insane. So Keith just hops in his car and drives down the road. Now I think he was drunk a little earlier today because he was looking for more alcohol when he found that champagne. Can't imagine it's been more than a couple of hours, but I guess he's okay driving. Now he's driving his own car. So did he go get back home somehow? Because the police clearly wouldn't have let him drive to Keith's and then pick up his car. Or had he left his car maybe at the Orient Express or wherever he got drunk the other day and not drive home? But he was drinking at home. I don't think he's been out at all.
No.
So I don't know. He did have to go to the Orient Express to rescue someone from Cannes a while back. So I don't know. Or to Johnny's. So he was at Johnny's that one day, but that was a while ago. I don't know. Anyway, he's in his car somehow driving around. Miss Norris watches from the bar in the Orient Express as Lucy treats Ted and Haley to a lavish dinner. Now, Lucy's the other single woman on the show. I'm thinking, Jake's single, and, she's been hanging out with Ted and Haley at the Johnny's for a while, so that's a potential match. Mm-hmm. And there's also Pearl. But she tells Ted and Haley she's leaving town tonight. And Haley says, "Are you going back to Ventura?" And she says, "No." Long story short, she leaves them, and they're super suspicious. And they basically find her on the roof of the Capwell Hotel on the other side of the railing. Of course, planning to jump. So Haley runs off to get help and returns eventually with Keith and Sharon. Ted has managed to keep her from jumping off the roof during this time. Then Cruz hears the call on his car radio. Luckily, he's in his car, puts on his lights and siren, and heads over full speed to the Capwell Hotel, dashes up 8 stories, bursts through the door, does a somersault, a backflip, and launches himself over the railing and lands on the ledge next to Lucy. That was slightly exaggerated, but that's basically what happened. Shocking Lucy, but not enough to dislodge her from the ledge, luckily. He tells Lucy he's been thinking about doing the same thing as her, but that Eden wouldn't want him to quit, and there are lots of people on this rooftop who wouldn't want Lucy to quit either. She tells Cruz about the date she had recently, and that the guy basically came on to her when he found out that she had been assaulted the previous year. Cruz says that guy was a jerk. At some point during this exchange, Lucy loses her footing and Cruz lunges for her. And that was our cliffhanger.
That was our cliffhanger.
Cruz and Lucy both potentially slipping off the roof of the Capwell Hotel. I feel like Lucy's going to be rescued. And then maybe she will have to go on a date with Pearl or Jake or someone who's single on the show.
It would have been kind of cool if a giant letter C had become dislodged and landed on top of them.
That is it for week 145 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara. We've had a week of expos and World Cups and Olympics and trips to Montreal and not to Greece.
Canada Day.
Canada Day happened in between there.
Jazz Festival.
I went to a jazz festival. So it wasn't quite the week we had hoped for. We'll go back to Greece some year, I guess. Try that again. But for now, I guess we'll continue to shoot from our living room, our dining room actually, in our apartment unless something exciting happens in Vancouver that we can use as a backdrop. There's going to be fireworks, but I think that would be even harder to talk over than this music. So, episode 704 is Monday's show, and I'm a bit worried about Miss Norris because she's still credited as Mystery Woman for her next several appearances. I'm wondering if that means all we're going to see her doing is peering through windows for the next 2 or 3 weeks before she finally introduces herself to someone.
Seems like it would make for a long day, I would think, just peering through windows all day. But
I mean, we definitely want to see more of this crazy lady, but twice a week peering through windows is very frustrating for the viewer. Episode 704 originally aired May the 4th, 1987. So we will see you after Monday's show. Yes-o! That also means goodbye.
does it? Oh,
Yes.
Cool.
So goodbye and hello and goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
If a guy can't bum $2 million off his dad, who can he bum it off of?